As a person who immigrated from Haiti to America, the American spirit is ingrained in me. I see my parents flip our lives upside down, move us to a foreign country, and give us opportunities that we would have never had in our homeland. So I wholeheartedly believe that every American has the opportunity to achieve prosperity, success, and upward mobility as long as they work hard and never give up. However, I didn't realize until later that I had to fight through extra obstacles like systemic, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized racism in order to achieve the American dream. This country was set up so that the white majority gets every opportunity to live that dream while the black minority is positioned to continue living the American nightmare. So in this video, I'll look at systemic, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized racism in order to explain why black Americans have to be extraordinary to achieve the American dream. Before I start, let me explain the different levels of racism. Systemic racism is the ongoing racial inequalities maintained by society. Institutional racism is the discriminatory policies and practices within organizations and institutions. Interpersonal racism is the bigotry and the biases shown between individuals through word and action. Internalized racism is the race-based beliefs and feelings within individuals. In order to understand racism in the United States of America, you have to understand how the country came to be. American society was set up by a group of white males called the Founding Fathers that worded the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in order to highlight their rights and freedoms as white males. When they said all men are created equal and wrote the Bill of Rights, they didn't include black people. Instead, they saw them as property and kept them as slaves. Slavery was the biggest instance of systemic racism. Black Americans were kidnapped from their homelands, stripped of their identity, and became the economic engine for the entire country, while white Americans benefited off the free labor. Eventually, this system ended when black people started to free themselves during the American Civil War and when the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution. However, systemic racism didn't die with slavery. Instead, it evolved into Jim Crow laws. These laws made segregation legal and continued the mistreatment of black people in America. White Americans had better access to education, health facilities, housing, and economic opportunities, while black Americans had the worst of each category. Life wasn't easy for us, but we persevered and were able to put an end to Jim Crow during our fight in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. The passage of the Voting Rights and the Fair Housing Acts made segregation illegal and put a dent on systemic racism. However, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized racism were still alive and well in America. Institutional racism in the housing industry allowed for the continuation of housing segregation. Realtors discouraged black Americans from staying in desirable white neighborhoods and encouraged them to stay in neighborhoods who had higher poverty levels and lower quality housing. Also, black Americans were given higher risk mortgages, making it easier for them to lose their homes. As a result, a lower percentage of black families own homes compared to white families. This is important to know because owning property and land made it easier for a family to build wealth. And since for decades, black Americans were barely able to do either, it made it harder for them to build generational wealth. And it doesn't stop there. Institutional racism in the housing industry caused there to be an inequality in education. Since funding for public schools is based on wealth of the surrounding area and property tax, white kids were able to go to better public schools because they lived in richer neighborhoods. Their schools had more resources, experienced teachers, and lower dropout rates, while black kids from poorer neighborhoods had the total opposite and less chances of going to college. Furthermore, black students also had to deal with the interpersonal racism that's built in the educational system. They were disciplined, suspended, and expelled more than their white counterparts, making them more likely to get arrested. Equally important, the history that is taught in public schools is nothing but white propaganda. White Americans highlight their achievements all year long, while black Americans are given 1 month to learn black history. And the black history that they teach is always the same whitewashed version of slavery, the Civil War, and the Civil Rights Movement. They really had us believing that racism and the impacts of slavery was far behind us, but failed to mention the war on drugs, mass incarceration, and the internalized racism in police departments, the judicial system, politics, and corporations. And according to some white Americans, none of that exists. They don't see color and that all lives matter. But they can't explain why black people are more likely to get arrested and are given longer sentences than white people. Why the government always seems to have money to bail out big businesses, but never have enough money to help out poor black communities. And why the vast majority of owners, general managers, and coaches are white when the majority of players who make up the NBA and the NFL are black. And the answer is simple. It's racism and white privilege. White Americans are the majority. They have a hand in everything in the United States. They hire people that look just like them and don't have to worry about their skin color getting in the way of them achieving the American dream. But some fail to realize that we as black people are fighting for the fair chance to achieve the American dream. We don't want no handout. We want to earn everything that is given to us. We just don't want to have to worry about the police killing us, judges giving us unfair sentences, and our skin color being a factor to why we don't get jobs and promotions. So with that being said, why are y'all so against racial equality? We're not trying to take your rights away. But the more I look at it, the more I understand that those who fight so hard to keep racism alive are the ones that are scared to compete with black people in the equal playing field. And I don't blame them for being scared. Because time and time again, when the odds were stacked against us, we've shown that we're able to find a way on top. So scared or not, we gonna get ours. And it's just a matter of time before racism is dismantled in the United States.